The tiny flakes of gold glittered in James Marshall's hand like a promise. It was January 1848, in the cold foothills of California Sierra Nevada. Marshall stood beside a half-built sawmill on the American River, surrounded by pine trees, rushing water, and the rough wooden frame of a business that was supposed to make him comfortable, maybe even rich. Instead, that handful of yellow metal would help destroy almost everything he had. Marshall did not know it yet, but the moment he bent down and picked those flakes from the riverbed, he had touched the spark that would ignite one of the greatest migrations in human history. Farms would be abandoned, ships would be deserted in harbors, small settlements would explode into chaotic boomtowns, fortunes would be made overnight, and just as many would vanish in mud, disease, violence, and bad luck. But the man who found the gold would not become the king of this new world. He would spend years watching strangers flood into the land around him, tear it open, take what they could, and leave him behind. Before the gold, California was still a distant frontier. In early 1848, the United States had only recently taken control of the region after the Mexican-American War. San Francisco was still small, closer to a rough port town than a future metropolis. The inland valleys and riverbanks were quiet, scattered with ranches, indigenous communities, mission lands, and small settlements connected by difficult roads. James Wilson Marshall was not a famous explorer. He was not a powerful politician. He was a carpenter, a mechanic, and a restless man who had drifted west looking for opportunity. Like many people on the frontier, he was trying to build something that would finally stay built. His partner was John Sutter, a Swiss-born entrepreneur who controlled a vast estate near present-day Sacramento. Sutter dreamed of creating his own agricultural empire in California, a private kingdom of fields, livestock, trade, and industry. He had land, he had workers, he had influence. What he needed was lumber. So he sent Marshall into the hills to build a sawmill. The place they chose was Coloma, along the South Fork of the American River. It was remote enough to feel hidden, but useful enough to matter. The river could power the mill, and the surrounding forests could feed it. If everything worked, the mill would cut wood for Sutter growing settlement and help turn his frontier dream into a profitable machine. But the river was not cooperating. The water channel, called the tail race, had to be deep enough to carry water away from the mill wheel. Marshall and his workers spent nights releasing water through the channel, letting the current carve the riverbed deeper while they slept. In the morning, they inspected what the water had exposed, and on January 24, 1848, Marshall noticed something shining in the ditch. At first, it could have been nothing. A trick of sunlight, a bit of rock, a piece of mica, which often fooled inexperienced eyes. Marshall picked it up anyway. The metal was small, yellow, and stubborn. When he hammered it, it flattened instead of breaking. When he tested it, it behaved like gold. Marshall understood enough to know this was dangerous news. Not dangerous because gold itself could hurt him, dangerous because people could. A secret like this could not sit quietly in the river. If word spread, workers would abandon the mill, settlers would rush into the valley, Sutter land would be overrun. The careful plans of both men could collapse under the weight of something far larger than either of them. So Marshall rode to Sutter Fort with the discovery. Sutter studied the metal, checked an encyclopedia, ran tests, and realized the same thing: it was gold. For a moment, the two men had the kind of secret that could change a life. They talked about keeping it quiet. Sutter wanted to finish the mill first. He wanted his workers controlled, his property protected, and his claims secured. Marshall wanted to protect his own future too. The gold might make them wealthy, but only if they could hold the world back long enough to organize themselves. They could not. The first whispers spread through the workers, then through nearby settlements. At first, many people doubted the rumors. California had seen false promises before, and frontier gossip could grow wild in a single afternoon. But then a store owner and newspaper publisher named Samuel Brannan saw the opportunity more clearly than almost anyone. Brannan did not need to dig gold to get rich from gold. In May 1848, he reportedly walked through San Francisco waving a bottle filled with gold dust and announcing that gold had been found on the American River. Whether every detail of that scene happened exactly as later stories described it, the effect was real. San Francisco woke up. Brannan owned a store stocked with mining supplies. Picks, pans, shovels, blankets, food, and equipment suddenly became more valuable than speeches or land deeds. While hopeful miners raced toward the rivers, merchants like Brannan stood at the gate of the dream, selling the tools required to chase it. This was one of the first cruel lessons of the gold rush. The people who found gold were not always the ones who became rich. By mid-1848, California was unraveling into movement. Sailors deserted ships in San Francisco Bay, soldiers left their posts, workers abandoned farms, shops, and workshops. Newspapers struggled because printers ran off to the mines. Ordinary routines collapsed as men looked at their wages, then looked toward the mountains and decided the river might pay better. At Sutter Mill, the problem became immediate. The sawmill that had started everything could barely function. Workers left to dig. Strangers arrived without permission. The land Sutter believed he controlled became a magnet for trespassers, gamblers, traders, fortune seekers, and desperate men who cared little for property lines drawn before gold entered the story. Marshall, the discoverer, was now trapped inside his own discovery. He tried to work claims. He tried to profit from the area, but the news had escaped too quickly. In the chaos of the early rush, legal protection was weak, records were messy, and physical possession often mattered more than fairness. If a man could dig, defend, and endure, he had a chance. If he hesitated, someone else would take the ground. And then came 1849. That year gave the gold seekers their famous name, the 49ers. They arrived by land and sea, from the eastern United States, Latin America, Europe, China, Australia, and beyond. Some crossed plains and mountains in wagon trains. Some sailed around Cape Horn, enduring months at sea. Others crossed Panama, risking tropical disease and brutal travel to reach the Pacific. They came because the rumor had become a fever. Imagine San Francisco in 1849. Streets of mud, wooden buildings rising almost overnight, ships crowding the harbor, canvas tents packed along rough lanes, gamblers shouting over card tables, merchants charging outrageous prices, and miners stumbling in from the hills with stories that were either miracles or lies. A town that had been small only a short time earlier became a roaring supply center for a human stampede. But the goldfields were not a fantasy kingdom. They were cold mornings, freezing rivers, injured hands, bad food, sickness, fights, and exhaustion. A miner could spend all day bent over a pan and find almost nothing. Another man could strike a rich pocket and earn more in a week than a laborer might make in years. That randomness kept the fever alive. Every failure could be explained away by one thought: tomorrow might be the lucky day. As the easy surface gold disappeared, mining became harder and more organized. Simple pans gave way to rockers, sluices, water systems, and eventually industrial methods that tore entire hillsides apart. The gold rush was no longer just men crouching by rivers. It became an engine that reshaped the land itself. Riverbeds were churned, forests were cut, camps became towns, towns became cities. Roads, banks, shipping routes, and supply chains expanded to feed the hunger of the mines. California population surged so quickly that the region rushed toward statehood. In 1850, barely 2 years after Marshall found those flakes, California entered the United States as a state. The gold had done what politicians, soldiers, and settlers alone could not have done so quickly. It had pulled the world west. But for many who already lived there, the gold rush brought catastrophe. Indigenous communities faced violence, displacement, starvation, and disease as miners and settlers invaded their lands. The Mexican Californios who had lived under older land systems often found their rights challenged in courts and camps now dominated by newcomers. Foreign miners were taxed, harassed, and sometimes driven away. The dream of gold was never shared equally, and in the middle of this expanding storm stood James Marshall, the man who had seen the first glint. His discovery should have given him leverage. It should have made him famous in the useful way, the kind that brings protection, money, and power. Instead, it made him famous in the tragic way. Everyone knew his name, but knowing his name did not give him control. Marshall and Sutter both struggled. Sutter empire collapsed under the pressure of squatters, lawsuits, stolen livestock, ruined fields, unpaid debts, and the overwhelming disorder that followed the rush. His dream of a carefully managed settlement was swallowed by the very migration his land had helped attract. Marshall drifted through years of frustration. He tried mining, farming, and other ventures, but lasting wealth escaped him. Later in life, he received a small pension from the state of California for his role in the discovery. Even that did not last forever. Tourists sometimes came to see him because he was the man who found the gold. But admiration was not the same as security. There is something painfully ironic about his story. A man discovers the metal that transforms California, accelerates American expansion, enriches merchants, builds cities, funds dreams, and changes the global economy, yet he cannot hold on to the reward. The gold passes through his life like water through the mill race that exposed it. The more powerful the discovery became, the smaller Marshall seemed inside it. That is what makes the story different from a simple tale of luck. It is not just about a man finding gold. It is about what happens when one person uncovers something too big for one person to control. Gold did not behave like private property. It behaved like a signal fire. Once seen, it called everyone. By the early 1850s, California was no longer the quiet frontier Marshall had known. San Francisco was growing into a major city. Mining camps had formed their own rough systems of law and violence. Fortunes had already been made by merchants, bankers, transport companies, and land speculators. The world had arrived, and it had no intention of leaving. Marshall's sawmill, the original reason he was there, became almost secondary. The practical project had been erased by the accidental discovery. The thing he was building was forgotten because of the thing he found while building it. Today, the discovery site at Coloma is remembered as the birthplace of the California gold rush. James Marshall's name is carved into history. Monuments stand where the chaos began. School books mention him. Visitors walk the ground where he once looked into the water and saw something shining back. But history can be cruel with its rewards. It often remembers the person who opened the door, while giving the treasure to those who rushed through after him. Marshall died in 1885, far from the fortune many people might assume he gained. The man who found California's most famous gold never became the master of it. He became a warning hidden inside a legend, because sometimes discovery is not ownership. Sometimes the thing that looks like a blessing is really a force. It pulls in strangers, breaks plans, changes laws, destroys old worlds, and builds new ones before anyone can stop it. James Marshall picked up a few flakes of gold from a cold riverbed, hoping they might secure his future. Instead, they summoned the world. If you enjoyed this video, leave a comment below and tell me what you'd like to see next. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more videos like this.